I approach this topic as somebody that studied English at university. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer, or the stereotypes are true, but I decided to study English instead. And one of the reasons why I decided to study English, one of the reasons why as a teenager I was transfixed and enraptured by literature and the arts was because I found them to be a form of liberation. I found literature to be not something that would reflect my own particular circumstances, my own personality, but a space, an avenue with which I can reach a universal plane where I could be in conversation or be in contact with people from different circumstances from mine. And so when I observe the landscape now in terms of the arts, when I observe the landscape in terms of the creative industries, what I'm struck by isn't diversity per se, but the absence of diversity. I think when we talk about diversity, when many people talk about diversity, I think the problem is that they don't talk about it with enough diversity. And what I mean by that is when people talk about diversity, when they invoke words like diversity, equity, and inclusion, what that means in practice all too often is a kind of conformity, is reducing people to their particular identity, whether that be racial, sexual, gender, or any other type of identity, rather than trying to look at somebody, trying to evaluate somebody, trying to make sense of somebody without recourse to a very narrow aspect of their particular identity. And so what I find frustrating about many of the conversations I observe in terms of the relationship between diversity and the creative industries is precisely that absence of trying to not make assumptions about somebody's interests, somebody's ideas, somebody's life, simply on the basis of their identity. And I think that another problem with discussions around diversity is the absence of pluralism. So any invocation of diversity without pluralism, and by pluralism I mean the diversity of opinion. I think any conversation around diversity without emphasizing the importance of diversity of opinion is utterly useless. I think when we talk about diversity, I would argue that diversity of viewpoints, diversity of opinion is the most important aspect of diversity, because diversity of opinion is something that crosses through all other types of diversity. It's the most universal type of diversity. You shouldn't assume that because of somebody's race or somebody's gender, they would necessarily espouse a set of opinions. We should be open to being challenged. We should be open to engaging with viewpoints that are utterly different from us. And I think affirming diversity of opinion is the most important avenue through which we can embody the best of what we mean by diversity. In terms of my university education, Maren used to worked at the same university that I studied at. In fact, that's how we met for the first time in person. In terms of my university education, I think what I was struck by in many of my seminars was the absence of curiosity. And I think when it comes to the creative industries, curiosity is the most important element. Curiosity is essential to being able to have an imagination in the first place. Curiosity is essential to being able to ask questions, to ask incisive questions, to ask questions that challenge conformity, to ask questions that challenge yourself. And I think what I was struck by in my university education was the absence of curiosity. Many of my fellow students, and in fact, some of the teachers themselves, seem to follow a particular ideological line. They seem to interpret certain texts through a particular ideological lens rather than allowing the texts to speak for themselves. And without that absence of curiosity, I think that's one of the things that leads to a desire amongst many people in education and the creative industries to condemn certain ideas and certain individuals that fall out of line with whatever the ideological orthodoxy is in place. And that sort of immediate disposition, that sort of desire to immediately condemn without actually evaluating and understanding the text or the individual or the idea in front of us, I think that emerges out of the absence of curiosity, out of the absence of not allowing yourself to be persuaded by other ideas, or even allowing yourself to listen to other ideas and to other forms of expression. So to crystallize what I've said and to reaffirm what I've said, any conversation about diversity without the absence of curiosity, without the absence of pluralism, and without the affirmation of everyone's irreducible individuality is utterly useless. Thank you.
Thank you.